if you as the producer or you as a director or the writer don't believe in the project, your crew will not believe in the project, meaning the project does not have faith, meaning it's going to die. I know that sounds very harsh, but it's the truth. You, the director, the producer, the writer, is the driving force in the heart of that whole project. So you have to reverberate that energy throughout your entire team.
My name is Wes Gibbons, and welcome back to the Tungsten Originals podcast. You just heard part of my conversation with writer, director, and CEO Joel Hamrick. We discussed his philosophies about the entertainment industry, his thesis film Exposure, and why he decided to start his very own production company, Ivy Vision. If you enjoy this episode, please rate and review the podcast on iTunes. It's truly a huge help. And if you do, I'll send you some tungsten stickers for free. Just get in contact with us on any social media so I can get your info. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. Episode 60 of the Tungsten Originals podcast. Joel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
How's it going?
Good. It's going real good. Currently I'm at work, so I live in my work clothes and uniform.
Yeah.
But
you're our first
it's going
paid
good,
guest because
though.
you're currently getting paid right now.
I'm getting paid. Yeah. So I know, I'm very grateful for my job. They let me do this. So this is kind of cool. How are you, Wes?
I'm doing well. It's so nice to get back into interviewing people, and I'm so glad that you are I guess you would be our second interview back for this new season, if you want to call it that. And it's been a long time coming. I feel like we've had multiple conversations about you being on the podcast since whenever we took classes together. And so It's fine. It's like really exciting to finally have you on. But
Yeah.
I want to talk all about your company, Ivy Vision, of course, your thesis film Exposure, and all the exciting things you're doing with that stuff. But before we dive into that, I want to get into your backstory and how you got into this industry in the first place. So, of course, you're a SCAD film grad. That's how we know each other. We took Senior 2 together. And, that is, of course, a big part of your career. But I was looking at the Ivy Vision website, and I saw that you're from Houston, Texas. So could you tell me a little bit about how you got into filmmaking, what your first project was and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. Didn't really get into filmmaking until my junior year of high school. I was all throughout my childhood and into high school, I wanted to be a actor. I was very much wanted to be in front of the camera. Did commercials as a kid, had the headshots, resume, the whole 9 yards. But I really got into, they messed up on my schedule in high school. I wanted to be in the musical theater class, and they actually put me in this film class, or this what they thought was a film class. It's
right.
I don't know, high school film classes are really not film classes. They're just hey, we got these digital cameras, and hey, we got these microphones, go shoot something. So, and then we're making a film, and then we'll go put it in these little competitions and see if you win. So that's exactly what the class was about. But I wrote my first screenplay in that class, and just because it was an assignment, never written in a screenplay before. It's actually this. If you look back on it now, you would be like, "This is the worst screenplay ever." It's in the worst format. It's actually in a notebook.
Nice. That's amazing.
But it was fun. And then I really enjoyed writing that screenplay to the point where I was like, Mom, this is what I want to do. I want to make this film. So she gave me a loan of $600, and I didn't use the $600 to make the film. I made the film for free with all my church friends from my church, and we made the film for free. It's called Bash. It's actually still the
Mm-hmm.
most watched film um in the Ivy Vision like collection of films.
Mm-hmm.
It's still the one. But and then I took the $600 that my mom gave me, rented out a theater, and I grossed $1,000, and then I
Oh wow.
gave her the $600 back, and I kept $300 to myself. So that's when I proved to my parents, to them both, that I was like, I'm serious about doing this filmmaking
Yeah.
gig. Um, so that's how
Wow.
I got into it. And then I used Bash to get into SCAD. That's how I got in. That was my
Mm-hmm.
thesis, or my entry film into SCAD,
Right.
um, which
Right.
was fun.
That's so. I love hearing about people's like high school film classes because I never had that. So like that's such a cool thing to me. But whenever you like were writing it, um, I just think it's interesting that you started off wanting to act. Like, was your original goal like film acting or stage acting or just really any kind?
Commercial and film acting. So
Okay.
I did a commercial for Space City Houston, which is NASA basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a couple of auditions. One was for a Denzel Washington movie, and then one was for Nike. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it was actually the Nike, at the end of the Nike audition, that I really messed up on, because as athletic as I was throughout my childhood, I wasn't really good. Um, Never found a sport that I actually was like really good at. So
Yeah.
it was like, I think it was a soccer, and I played soccer, so that's why I got into the audition. Really, because I had
Mm-hmm.
experience in soccer, but I wasn't like freaking good at it or anything. So I got into it, and I flunked. I really did really bad. And I was like, I really messed up, mom. And she was like, it's okay. You're going to have auditions like this. You're not going to nail every audition. And it's like, she's like,
Right.
this is a career that like you have to want to do it in spite of. And it's like, and she asked me that question, do you want to do this like for your rest of your life? Do you see the process that this is? Do you experience that you're not going to get every audition? You're not going to do this. Do you want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, I don't want to do this, because I want a confirmed paycheck. Like I don't want to
Right.
strive. And also it's just the actor's life. And that's why I give props to actors, because, or
Yeah.
true actors, thespian actors, because they're doing it because it's something that they love to do and they're born to do, and that's something that they live and breathe. Like, to have that passion for a craft is something like no other. So, and if you want to,
Yeah.
and the thing is, even now that I'm starting to do it with Ivy Vision, you're starting to realize that your your craft does not feed you every day. It's a something that you have to want to do, and you have to love to do, even if it's $1 or $100 million. You got to
Mm-hmm.
want to like do it regardless, and you want to do it at the best caliber as you can. So that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning, especially with Ivy Vision, because it's a startup. Like, I don't even pay the people that work for me. You know, they do get incentives on different things, and we do help them out. But you know, I haven't gotten to the level where I can put them on a payroll yet. But on
Right.
we're working towards that. That's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
To get creators an opportunity, and also give them what they're worth, and what they're
Yeah.
paid. Yeah, what they're worth.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that is like I have the exact same goal with Tungsten. You know what I mean? Like the
Hmm.
dream is to be able to just make amazing things with great people and like pay them well.
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
So
It's a
I think that's fantastic.
it's an ambitious goal for both of us, but I feel like
Yeah.
it's something that is possible,
Hmm.
and it's something that a lot of it's needed. It's needed, especially in our
Yeah.
in our field of entertainment, because people are not getting paid how they should. And you know, going through the film school aspect and knowing these positions, and knowing those late nights that producers go through, and what crew go through, and like just going through this
Mm-hmm.
pandemic, you get to see how vital things are, how vital your positions are, and how vital your crew is, and all this other
Mm-hmm.
X, Y, and Z and things of nature. So I think that that's why I want to do it, because it's something that's a need, and it's something that could be beneficial for the industry, not just our companies, but just the industry itself.
Yeah, 100%. And you hear, especially at film school, you hear so many horror stories about like working for free, or like you find a job and it's actually a scam, and all these like horror stories. And it's like, well, what's the best way to make it better? And it's like, well, to just like try to do it yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Filmmaking, and this, is trial and error.
Yeah.
Going through film school is a trial and error. Like I was
Yeah.
explaining that I didn't, sometimes I didn't utilize as many of the tools and the necessities that I could have, or, everyone says,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I could have took this class instead of this class, or to benefit me now. But it's all trial and error. You just have to,
Yeah.
you kind of know what you want to do after you get out of film school. At least you kind of know what route you want to go. So you just have to excel in that route. You know the basics of what to do, and but now you just excel on that. And it's not to say that you're doing
Mm-hmm.
it right or you're doing it wrong. It's just you're just finding your way on how to do it. And that's kind of like what we are doing with our companies. It's kind of a trial and error. But, no, there's no
Yeah.
rule book on how to start a film production company. Like I
If there
know
was, I'd
there
buy it
is
immediately.
I would buy it immediately, and I would take all the master
Yeah.
classes I could, but like there is
Right.
no really like way to do it. Like I don't know
Yeah.
if you haven't gotten into this, but rate cards are something that you have to think of. Like if I were to go into production, how much would I pay this person, or how much would I have
Oh
to
yeah.
take out of this? Um,
Mm-hmm.
you break down not just budgets, but you break down scripts, and you're breaking down, there's so much that you're doing when you're getting into the
Yeah.
meat of a company, and making sure that everyone is taken care of, or at least everybody will be taken care of when the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity comes into play. And then you want to make sure you have content on deck, and then you want to make sure that you have
Yeah.
finances keep coming in. It's like you want to make sure everything is running so smoothly. It's like a
Yeah.
well-oiled machine. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Man, this like I was
we do
already.
we do a lot of things. We do a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
things.
and we really do. I was already excited for you to be on, but like this is just even more exciting because I haven't had anyone on. I don't think that like wants to do what we're doing, like make their own company and all this kind of stuff. So it's like
Mhm.
I'm so happy and excited to like pick your brain about this stuff because I'm sure we've faced very similar issues and like have similar questions and stuff. And after yesterday, I interviewed Jada Cardoza. Her episode is coming out a week after
Mhm.
this one comes out. But I interviewed
Okay.
her yesterday, and before we started rolling, we were talking about how I was interviewing you and like Tungsten Ivy Vision and stuff. And she was like, I respect y'all so much for wanting to start a company. I couldn't do what you do. And I said, like, I was very appreciative of that. But I said, I'm sure Jill would agree. So much of it is just figuring it out as you go. You know what I mean?
It
So I'm
is,
glad you brought that
and
up.
Jada and Jada's my best friend, so like she knows everything of the ins and outs of Ivy Vision before
Hmm.
anyone else does. So like she came in for the day, and she took a nap in my house. Like Jada has a key to my house, but like she just comes and she'll stay over for a couple hours, and then she'll go back to Atlanta.
Hmm.
So she came in, and I was like, I had already come home from work. I was tired. I was in the bed. And she was like, so what you do today? And I was like, I told her like the whole layout of plans, and then what I was planning on doing on the next thing. And she's kind of like, well, you're gonna do it. It's gonna all work out. And she's like
Hmm.
she's so supportive, but
Yeah.
like even though she can do that, the thing is like I want her to feel like So Jada's head of the post department. Like she's head of all
Right.
of she can control of all that. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, I want her to feel like she's a part of. That's why one another thing that is, I want her to feel like she's a part of this company as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's what she does is a big thing. Like for her to take exposure into the pandemic very gracefully, like
Yeah.
um, you know, edit. I mean, we're so blessed to even have just shot footage beforehand, but then going
Mm-hmm.
into post production, she took a big charge in getting
Right.
Spencer and you know, Sam and everyone, and even our sound department, the necessities that they needed in the pandemic, trying to get everything. It was just assets moving through the cloud all the time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so just making sure that we had all of that, and she's the reason why exposure is able to be seen now, because it took a while
Mm-hmm.
for it to be done. Sound, it took a lot for them to get things done because we're working literally in different states and
Right.
at different times, and it was very much a challenge. It took a very long time, but we're very glad that we took the time that we needed to do it. And she's
Mm-hmm.
the biggest. I can't thank her enough. I can't thank her enough on that one. For but Jada's great. Jada's amazing.
Yeah, I
Love
really
her.
enjoyed talking to her, and it's so cool to have like a double feature podcast episodes about like two key people in the making of Exposure. So, um, it was just a really exciting opportunity. So I was really happy to have her on. Um, but
Yeah.
before we get a little bit more to Exposure, I want to go back to like the genesis of Ivy Vision. So, you know, you talked about how like you knew immediately after writing that short that you wanted to like be a writer director instead of like being an actor. When did you know that you wanted to have some form of your own company? Because I remember from my very first short film, I had this obsession for some reason of having my own company, having my own name. Of course, it wasn't Tungsten at that point. I went through like multiple different, ideas and stuff like that. Tungsten
Right.
is like way more recent and like certainly the
Yeah.
best idea out of those ideas. But when did you know like writing directing is one thing, of course, but as we both know, trying to build a whole company and infrastructure is way way more on your plate. So when did you know about that?
I I love that we're like on the same page on this. We're like literally
It's so
like
cool. This is really really
it's so
special to me
cool.
because I feel
Yes.
like we could talk for hours about what it's like to try
Yes.
to do this stuff.
I'm loving this. So it started, it really didn't start, it, it didn't really start when I started when I wrote Bash. It didn't start when I
Right.
wrote What Was Left. It didn't start when I wrote Lucid. It started when 569 came out, actually, where the company aspect really started to settle in. I just needed a name to cover the films that were underneath that I had already previously made, like Bash and What Was Left and Lucid.
Right.
So I had it under Jewel IV Productions. That's just how it was left. And that was the base name. And we just carried that name until 569. When 569 came out, 569 is like, it's one of my, I don't know. I want to say it's my favorite because Bash will always be my favorite, but I think it's my second favorite because it created a lot of things. It helped a lot of things and it was
Mm-hmm.
made for a lot of things. But one of the things that came out of 569 was the LLC portion of this whole thing was
Right.
um, it was the first film underneath the actual name Ivy Vision, which was just I talked about. It was something that I talked about with my mother. It was a gift from my mother, actually. Ivy Vision is a gift from my mom.
Hmm.
She's the one who got me through college. She's the one who was very much full hand supported. My dad is not to say that my father isn't, but she was the one that was like, "You're going to SCAD no matter whatever the cost,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you do, because this is something that you want to do." And she is my cornerstone. She's my rock when it comes to filmmaking, in life and really in general. She's like my
Mm-hmm.
best friend, but she got me that. And it's an investment. She doesn't call it a gift. She calls it an investment because not to say that she's going to reap the returns, but she expects returns from that. And that's I think it's the same feeling, but more the feeling that I got when they gave me they paid for my driver's ed for my birthday one year for my 16th birthday. Instead of buying me a car, they paid for the driving lessons. And I was like, why did you give me a certificate? This is stupid. Give me the car. Like, and there was like, this is paying for you to get the permission like it was an investment. And that's what it was.
Yeah.
For me to go ahead and get into learning how to drive a vehicle, and then the vehicle came later. So that's kind of like how I see the company. Like, it's something that she's investing in, and she doesn't see her. I mean, my mom works in media, so she doesn't see herself working in her field of media too long. So it's something that she's going to base it in family now. I'm excited to see what she's going to do on her portion. She is on the board of Ivy Vision. So coming into that, I like 569 is one of her favorite films. So it's very much a very much family affair when it comes to how the company came into play. My dad's very supportive of it. He's not on the board, but he's very much supportive of everything. He knows all the projects and more projects that come, and he loves the fact that it's something that I can name after my own name. That's something. Our names are very much. They're important in our family. He won't say that, but it's very much a thing because I'm the fourth and he's the third and his dad is the second. So they're expecting a 5 after that. And, if they carry on the talent of, or the craft of filmmaking after me, then they will have something to put it on, which is Ivy Vision or whatever it is, when I'm gone. But that's what it is. It's a legacy. It's an it's an investment for a legacy. And I think it's really cool. So after 569, we got the LLC in November, and everything kind of went up from there. And then after that, exposure was on the deck. It wasn't really on the deck.
Right.
It came out of nowhere. I feel like you kind of know little bits and pieces of how exposure came out, but it was like, okay, once the LLC came in, it was like, all right, let's get to work, and what's next? Like, what are we going to drop next? So I don't know. I'm interested to see how Tungsten came about too, because I like where it's going, or I like how I'm feeling where it's going, because you're picking up projects, and that's something that I haven't gotten into yet. And I was talking about to Caitlin that I can't wait to pick up a project, and be able to fully go and distribute it and sponsor it and do the whole 9 yards. So that's something that you guys are doing. I love that. I can't wait to get into that.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's cool to see how our different company journeys have been, because up until, you talked about how like you when you started it, you had like your mom on the board and like these people that you had lined up to work with. Up until December, Tungsten was really just me. I of course like worked with a lot. I don't want that to sound like pretentious in that like I built this by myself, but like I of course worked with people like Brooks and Kara were at the beginning of the podcast. Like, this podcast wouldn't be what it is without them. I've worked with like amazing filmmakers on different short films and stuff. And all the people that have been guests on the podcast. Like it's certainly not just me, but I mean, in terms of like the behind the scenes business stuff was just me. And so back in December, I brought on Reagan, and we haven't, by this recording, we haven't announced that yet. But when you're listening to this episode, it's already been announced that Reagan is on our team as a producer. And now I've got like a sound editor for the podcast, a video editor. Just today, again, when I'm recording this, right after our interview, I'm about to have a meeting with Reagan and someone else about them becoming like our distribution producer for getting those films. So it's really exciting to like, it's so amazing to have a team now, because there's only so much you can do on
No.
your own,
Right.
and being
You're
able to just like
exactly right.
delegate tasks and have other people like um care about it just as much as you do is like
Hmm.
just the best feeling. So I'm really
Oh my gosh.
I'm hoping
Right.
that this is going to be a big year for us. So I'm excited.
I am I'm the same way. I can't relate like you just spoke from the Bible from that for real. Like having a team is like amazing and
Yeah.
having a supportive team and people that want to win and it's not just about you, but it's like they want to win as a collective is
Right.
something that I'm so blessed to have. Um, I mean, like
Hmm.
you were talking about meetings, like I have a meeting with he's my marketing director, but he's turned into be like my like an executive assistant now, almost something like having someone to just be there and get things done. And if they can't get them
Hmm.
done, they're delegating it to something else. And I love having helping hands, even though like Jada's Jada's not necessarily working in her department right now. She's working for
Right.
Marvel, but she's not working for me right
Yeah, she's
now in the
killing it at
fact,
Marvel,
but
but yeah.
but she does jump over into the development pond sometimes and
Hmm.
she's like, hey, if you want she's not she's gonna I tell her all the time she's gonna turn into a producer. And she's like, no, I don't like that. That's not something I'm into. She doesn't like pre-production. But,
She said that
that's
multiple
something she's
times in
gonna
the episode too. She was like, "Oh, I took pre-production classes and I hated it so much." And I'm like,
she
and I
hates
even though I didn't say this
pre-production.
in the episode, but I was like, "You could be a great producer." Like I just can
Oh my
tell that she has like a
God.
good head on her shoulder. She would kill it.
She could do it. She's directed before.
Hmm.
And I gave her a shot on 569, underestimated her. She's gonna have to tell you that story. But like
Yeah.
um and she's great. So she could definitely, I'm telling her she's
Hmm.
going to be a producer one day, but she'll come and jump the pond and she'll get
Yeah.
in and she'll do some development work, whether it's just input or we've created projects we haven't announced together yet, but we've developed
Hmm.
projects together that we want to create together. And it's something
Hmm.
that's something that you'll start to do too is well, you've
Hmm.
probably already done it. Developing projects within house is something that is so
Yeah.
great because, like, I had a pitch from my writer's room like a week ago, and having that something that you could just produce on your own and distribute out yourself is something that is great. Coming from a company aspect, and then it lets other voices shine as well too.
Yeah.
That's the fun part too, and that's why I like that you're picking up projects because you're not making it. Not to say that you could be a Tyler Perry and write all your projects yourself and
Hmm.
produce them all yourself, but letting other voices and let other stories come into light is something that I love, and that's what filmmaking is all about.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Like that's one of the main, looking at like the mission statement of like Tungsten or whatever, and I'm sure like I was looking at your website and I want to bring up yours as well, but like uh the one of the main goals was to produce and promote original media made by like
Hmm.
my peers, and so
Hmm.
yeah, I certainly want to make the stuff that like I want to be like the writer and director. Like of course Blueberries, we're going to be filming that this year. Like that is of course really important for me to make. Yeah, I'm very excited.
It's no,
um
no, it's very no, Wes. That's very, very important for you to make. Like I
yeah.
I've read many drafts of it. I'm
Yeah.
still following the Instagram page. I'm
Thank
so
you.
ready to see that because it's something that it's a story that we need to see. It's a story that we need to be
Mhm.
told. And the thing is, it may seem very common. Like that's
Mhm.
one thing that I'm a sucker for is common themes or common stories that happen in
Yeah.
everyday life.
Mhm.
But we take granted for your stories. We take it for granted because it happens
Mhm.
so normal, and it's normal in our everyday lives that we just like, oh, that's just something that we have in our life. No, but it happens everywhere, and
Yeah.
putting that on a silver screen is going to be very nice. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah, thank you. I That really does mean a lot because, I've told the story on the podcast about like how I had to cancel or postpone, I'll
Hmm.
postpone production because of COVID and everything. And that like really
Hmm.
sucked. To be fully honest, that was
Right.
awful. That last week of classes in
March.
March, like right
Hmm.
when we realized that COVID is like a big deal. It's kind of funny to look back now and think that there was a time in which we didn't think it was a big deal. Now that it's like shaped everything about our lives, but so many things fell through, and then I had to like pull the plug. So it's really incredibly important to me, to make it. And I'm so like, man, I'm so excited because I feel like we have such similar thoughts on the type of stories we want to tell and stuff. Because like I was actually just talking to my producer the other day about this. Like, I totally love consuming like really extravagant sci-fi films, that like are really huge, big budget stuff. Like, that is all I love watching. But right now, in terms of what I want to make, both myself and through Tungsten, like those everyday, like family dramas or like interpersonal relationships, like is what that's like really what I want to get into. You know what I mean? Um,
I like that.
mhm,
I'm, and don't get me wrong, I definitely relate to that on a the sci-fi fantasy type S level.
mhm.
Like, definitely have some of those in the vault for sure. But like right now,
Yeah.
I'm really on the drama, romance, interpersonal, social issue
Mhm.
esque type thing with you right there. Like, I'm
Yeah,
riding that
totally.
wave.
And even when it comes to the sci-fi stuff, like there's absolutely still ways to make those films, but have the core of it be about people. You know what I mean? Like Seth
Correct.
Cunningham of mutual friend, his thesis film Genesis. I think of
Oh,
that as a similar thing. At the core of it, it's about like people, about the characters, and so
it's
stuff
about the
like that.
characters. Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
I
um,
I love
that's
that
so
film.
cool to me.
That's one of that was one of my favorites
Yeah.
this year or last year, excuse me.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, we're in a whole new year. I keep forgetting
Yeah.
sometimes.
I know. Me too.
As much as I loving this new year, it's not
Yeah.
a bad start.
Right.
Knocking on wood, I'm sorry. But yeah, I love the fact, and that's what's gonna make these new, Tungsten and your visions and all the new startup companies that are gonna come out, or just names really. The diversity of those stories are gonna
Hmm.
be really nice. Like, you brought up Genesis. Genesis is a really nice story. Um,
Hmm.
very, very, very hits a lot of points. So I like
Yeah.
that's those things, those point hitting and diverse stories that these young, or us, you could say young filmmakers, us are coming out with, is really
Hmm.
good, really, really, really good.
Absolutely. So, like I said, I was looking around at your website. I wanted to like, get a better sense of like the uh the ideas behind Ivy Vision. And so I found like, a version of your mission statement that I want to read. Our company
Mm.
strives to give an authentic dosage of social themes and cultural shifts through genuine storytelling, artistic collaborations, and diverse voices. I love that. I think that's such a succinct way to wrap up what you're doing. Could you expand on that a little bit and like why you chose this to write it this way, like this language, like the genuine storytelling, artistic collaborations, and diverse stories could like diverse voices. I mean, could you like expand on what that means to you?
Ivy Vision, it's their visions. That's what I'm. If you go on my website, if you want to go look at, it's not going to say work. It's not going to say media. It's not. I mean, the thing will say media, but it's not going to say it on the page. It's going to say it's a vision, because that's what we call all our projects, our visions, because that's how they start off. They come,
Mm-hmm.
spurts or ideas of sequence of, or whether it's writing or music or anything. Um, that's how they start off, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be at the forefront of Ivy Vision that much in the long run. Yeah, I'll be behind the scenes, but people will be running the show too. I have multiple departments. I have a casting department, a writer's room, and now we have a sound department that's coming out pretty soon, working on that. But we want to tell those, we want to collaborate with each department. That's one thing that I wanted to create, is like I didn't want to outsource on anything. As if I needed music, I could go to Sydney. Sydney and Nia. If I needed something edited and put together, I could go to Jada. If I needed a script written, I can go to Elizabeth and she could pull one from the vault that we've already been working on or something. If I needed casting, which I don't have a head of casting yet, but I'll go to that person. So I learned so much about the entertainment industry just with being at SCAD, and I wanted to build a foundation of that in my own space, to create, because it's like, you're going to need talent, you're going to need sound, you're going to need things edited, you're going to need things filmed. So building that's how I wanted to collaborate, and then sharing those individual stories, like the writer's room. I'm not going to be the showrunner all the time. If any of the times now. I'm now demoting myself to a story editor, because I rather look at the pieces of work that's coming out and help the pieces of work, rather than pump out what I want or pump out what I think should be written all the time, because that doesn't give other opportunities to shine, or other people to have those opportunities to shine. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. So letting that happen in the writer's room, so other stories can be told, not mine. Letting my sound department, they're going to not just be working on putting sound into film, but they're going to be making their own music, which is going to be very, very cool. We tested it out during Exposure and 569 a little bit, where we got original music coming from Ivy Vision, and it's ours, which is really cool. If you can have your own music written in-house, that's great. But it is ours, but it's not technically ours. They can go do what they want with that piece of music. I'm not holding restriction to that. I'm letting them use it in our projects and as a distribution platform, but they are more than welcome to use that in their own artistry and their own craft. I haven't told anybody this, but this is an exclusive for you, my casting department.
Oh boy.
I'm going to start not managing talent, but I'm going to start booking talent. And I can't wait to start doing that, because that's something that I fell in love with at SCAD within my last final years, meeting you actually. Working with talent is something that is very crucial, because it's not to say that they're low hanging fruit, but they don't get paid like they should, and they don't get the screen time all the time. They have to work very, very hard to get to where to be. Like those A-lists, it's a very small industry. It may look big, but it's very small. And we have so much talent that comes from our school and that comes here in Savannah, that's literally on the East Coast, really, that just need to be seen and need to be put on and need work, just to be, whether it's small, whether it's big, whether it's whatever, but they just need stuff for their real. And that's what I think I'm going to start doing, is adopting some talent to put into the Ivy Vision world and play with, and basically see what we can put them in, and see if we can escalate them, and see what we can bring them. I do have, I'm starting with it with Exposure. I do have a select couple of actors that I'm going to be working with and workshopping with for a little bit, because of future things that are coming. But I'm excited. That's what I wanted to do. And I think that's why I wrote it to be that, because I wanted it to be inclusive. I wanted it to be something that artists want to do. And whether it's, whether you're an actor, whether you're a producer, whether you're a director, Ivy Vision's open to all of those positions, because eventually we're going to need those positions, whether it's tomorrow or whether it's in 3 years. So it's very important that we get those things together beforehand and before it gets, busy, and then we're looking for all these people and then we can't find them. But that's how it is.
Hmm.
We want to very much collaborate with anybody and anybody who has the same ambition, the same vision that we do.
That's so cool to me that you're doing like all the different parts of like the production, like the casting, the sound, and all that kind of stuff. That is just so cool to me. So I'm so glad you brought up the whole, like, you touched on the goal of diversity and inclusion, and that
Hmm.
is something that is like very obvious from whenever you look at your website and just like all the projects that you're creating under iVision. Like, obviously inclusion is something that is really important to you, and
Right.
it's like something that I'm striving for. I can always do better, but that I'm striving for. So what, like, in terms of diversity, like, what do you hope to see in the future of this industry? Because especially with last year, but really in the past several years, like, diversity has been a big conversation, in Hollywood. But you can only talk about it so much without doing anything. So, like, what do you hope to see some real change being?
Um, that's something that my mother and I have a conversation about all the time is, what how do we see the industry changing, and how with what is going on in our world today.
Mm-hmm.
um and I think it's going to boost, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of not, it's going to be a much bigger reaction, but kind of like we always related to when Jada Pinkett Smith um opted out of going to the Oscars, and it created this wave of Oscars so white. And
Right.
it was just, it brought so much attention to the fact
Mm-hmm.
that, well, there's a lack of diversity going on in the academy. And now that we're starting to see it, like now Issa Rae is on the board of the voting academy now. We're starting to
Mm-hmm.
see that these young but also diverse creatives are starting to get into these higher positions now, and that's really what is the thing. Um, we want to see those different shades of brown and those different shades of color in executive positions, making the calls of what gets greenlit and what doesn't get greenlit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we also want to see writers being credited for their work, but we also see creatives now who've had their acclaim, like your Shonda Rhimes, giving other people a chance to shine, like Chris, who is the writer of Bridgerton. And like that's kind of like what we're transitioning into. Okay, now the elites are letting, or now the people who've established their names in the industry are building their own names and companies and letting younger filmmakers come and tell their stories. Which
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would love to see to continue to see now. And with the diverse platform, now we're starting to see like American Skin, which is, we're starting to see filmmakers, regardless of funding or whatever, tell opposite stories of like what they want or what the world is now. Instead of seeing black police brutality, we're seeing white police brutality in films. We're seeing a switch in content because black people don't want to be just slaves or beat up in films anymore. Like that, we have a lot of slave movies that come in and out of Savannah, and that's one reason why I
Yeah.
want to base myself
Yeah.
here in Savannah, is because I won't be making a slave movie. Because I don't
Yeah.
want to see a slave movie. I'm tired of seeing
Yeah.
these, and it's not to say, it's not to cut out the historical context of that, because those movies are being portrayed how they were seen back then. It's not, we're not going to cloud the realness of that, but it's overdone. There are more stories in
Mm-hmm.
the Black community. There's more stories in the Mexican community. There's more stories in so many other cultures that can be told that have the same racial issue that we could be doing, but it could be tapped in somewhere else. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one reason I like being here in Georgia, at least in on the East Coast, is because it's so historic, but you can draw from that history and create something totally different that can hit the
Mm-hmm.
same way that all of these statues and all of these historical landmarks and all of these historical plantations hit, but you can hit them with visuals, or you can hit them with a nice story that can relate the same way. So that's kind of like the grasp of how I think that the film industry is going to go. Atlanta's booming.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta's the only place that's open right now. LA's closed and Miami's on a curfew. New York is getting
Right.
where they're getting there. They're not there yet. But Atlanta's the only place that's open to work right now. If you're,
Right.
I mean, just for production. So it's looking like that's where things are going to start being generated now. A lot of things, there's no all the writing is still going to be coming out from LA and New York. Unfortunately, there's no major writing studios or writing hubs in Atlanta just yet, which is something that if you're looking to start something new in the industry, that's something you could get into, is writing a writer's program or some type of professional writing in Atlanta, because it's everything stems from the coast. So
Right.
if we could get all that into one hub, Atlanta would be unstoppable when it comes to making productions. So that's kind of how it is that I see the future of film going as of right now. When it comes to diversity, we're always going to be, I feel like they're always going to be telling diverse stories. It's just how diverse can you get is
Mm-hmm.
the question. Can we push the envelope a little bit more? Can we push
Mm-hmm.
the pen a little bit more? Can we write a little bit more in depth of like what's really going on? Can we touch into some of those deeper, issues that, or those deeper stories that we would like to see and like to be told at least. Hmm.
Do you have like, thinking about the future of Ivy Vision and stuff, do you have like a dream
Hmm.
company to work with, or like a dream actor, or like, you know, any types of those kind of dreams that you have for the company?
Talent, not really, but I do have a dream company that I would love to like work with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jada and I are big fans of A24. So we love A24 films and TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to work with them. I would also like to work with, I love Plan B Entertainment. Anything that
Yeah.
Brad Pitt puts his hands on, I'm a sucker for.
Yeah.
So I know that's crazy to sound, but that also includes slave movies. But those slave movies, and this, okay, I want to also go back to the slave topic and slave movie topic thing. Um, some talent, and that's another reason why I'm very passionate about talent, because sometimes, like, if you look at big named Black talent like your Taraji P. Henson's, your Angela Bassett's, your Viola Davis's, your Morgan Freeman's, your Lawrence Fishburne's, all those. You go through all of them, they all had to play that low level Black role. And it's not to say that that was a bad thing. It made them who they are today. And that's something that I want to give another avenue. I want to give them another role. Not to say that you have to play that low level Black role, but what about
Mm-hmm.
someone who's going to play Kamala Harris? Who's going to play Kamala Harris in this biopic? It could be from my company. It could be I could be able to cast the next Kamala Harris biopic. I want to give
Mm-hmm.
something that's more empowering than degrading when it comes to a role that you have to play. And I and it's not to say that. I just wanted to hit that point because I do have
Yeah.
friends and colleagues who played slave roles, and that was their big thing. That was their big
Right.
credit on their resume. And it's like, no, that's not who you are. We can still make you
Mm-hmm.
something else. That's good that you can play that character, but let's not continue to play that character. Let's get you into another thing so you're not typecast. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
typecasting. That's one thing I don't like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
absolutely.
I'm sorry to break away that. I had to say
No, no, not at all.
that.
I did want to talk a little bit about Exposure, which is of
Okay.
course your most recent film, your thesis film. So
Yeah.
I had the wonderful opportunity to read the drafts because we were in senior two together and hear
Right.
about the different problems you were facing in production and see how it evolved over time. But for those listening who don't know about Exposure, can you give a quick synopsis of it and then explain how it came to be?
Yes. So Exposure focuses on Marcus Carter, who is about a 22 to 23-year-old photographer, who is in a down low relationship with his lover, Levi. And he takes these photos of him that are not lewd, they're just very admirable photos. And he puts them in this competition, photography competition, when he finds out that Levi is not necessarily feeling the same way he's feeling about him. So it came about. It's funny how that you said this, because Exposure was not supposed to be my thesis. It's not supposed to be my thesis.
Oh, okay.
I had written a crime thriller called Plotted, and it's still literally sitting in my it's sitting somewhere. And I pitched this. I was like, this is it. This is it. I had spent all summer writing it, doing the research for it. I had gone in on this project. I was like, this is it. This is it. And I wanted to go ahead and write it as a pilot. I was like, it's gonna be a pilot
Mm.
and it's a proof of concept, and I had a plan for it. So I pitched it to Andrew Meyer. If y'all don't know who Andrew Meyer is the producer of The Breakfast Club. And
Mm-hmm.
and when I'm saying when you're pitching to these professors, they are very much like they'll shoot it down in a heartbeat if it
Yeah.
doesn't vibe with them. So shooting this project was a lot. So I shot it, and he was like, "Okay, give me a couple of days," which is like, whoa. So he took a couple of days, he dissected it. I also sent it not just to him, I sent it to Sadwith, I sent it to people in the writing department, I sent it to a lot of people. They all loved it, except for there was two big things. One, it was overly ambitious, and two, the plot and the character development were not strong enough. They needed to be tightened. And at that time, I couldn't wait because I was in senior one. And senior one, you're really supposed to already have your thing ready to go. So you spend your 10 weeks gaining crew and doing all the pre-production
Mm-hmm.
work that you're supposed to be doing, not in senior two. So we get into that. Sadwith was really the one who was like, hey, this is really good, but save it. Just save it. And I was like, okay, I'll just
Right.
save it.
Yeah.
So, and then I come back with Meyer after he wants to meet with me. He told me the notes. He gave me some notes, and he was like, this is good, but you should save it. So I'm like, maybe they was talking together. But everybody was just like, just hold on to it, work on it on your own time, and then pitch it later to a studio or a network or something like that. And I was like,
Right.
okay. They was like, so what else do you have? And I was like, nothing. I don't have anything. I had not worked on anything since 569. I was stuck. So I went into, they were like, I want to see something by this date because you need to get working on your pre-production or else you're not going to have any grades, and two, you're not going
Yeah.
to be ready for senior two. So I had to go back into the vault, and there was nothing that was developed enough except for the short film. And it was called Exposure. And I wrote it in Nolan's. And Nolan had already precursed this project. He had said that this was going to be my thesis, and I laughed in his face and I said no. And now he's laughing in my face.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah.
now he's
Yeah.
like, look at where it is now. And
Right.
he it was so underdeveloped. It took 6 drafts to get it to the draft that it is now, and then it went through goldenrod. It went all the way into goldenrod revisions. I know that sounds crazy for a 16-page short film, but if you know how Sadwith was in that class, he would make you go through a whole surgery on your project, and it was a needed
Yeah.
surgery. It was like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
cannot thank Sadwith enough for pushing that, for pushing the film to where it is today. Because if I did not cut scenes or cut certain things down, it wouldn't be at the caliber as it is now. And I think I give Andrew, Sadwith, Nolan, Renee, and Cheney all of my praise, because they helped me get that project to where it needed to be. And whether it was just feedback notes or if they were really sitting there and telling me to cut things down, whether it was sound, whatever. It was really, 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 that's how, it was just really most successful project I've ever worked on for me personally. So I'm very blessed to have that opportunity to work with them really closely with that.
So one of the cool things that was so great about interviewing Jade is that we got to talk about the director-editor relationship. So can you talk a little bit about how, like, what it was like, since we've heard her side of the story, or will hear in the next episode. What was it like, during the post-production process for Exposure?
So the post-production process for Exposure was very different. It's not that different.
Right.
I think it was just very much of a shocker because we were all going through the same thing at the same time. We
Right.
were
Yeah.
online, and we were just, first of all, we were online in class, but then we had to get off on class and then jump on to a meeting, because it was just like, and we didn't realize how hard it was, because the editing portion was no different. It was like Jada would go, because we had already started post-production on set. And that was the key thing. Jada had created a whole streamlined plan of how she wanted to do post-production from set to post-production in her own domain. This is pre-pandemic. Like, we were not worried about COVID at all. So we go into, she had Spencer doing a string, I think it's called a slingshot or string shot, something like that. But basically what it is, I learned this, it's where they put all the clips of the film or all the takes of the clip in each scene all in one timeline. And they basically go with Claire, who is our script assistant. Script assistant. I'm blanking on the script supervisor. There we go. They'll go with her notes and my notes, and then they'll basically go through the entire film and take the takes that we want. So she had already started doing that from day one. So all we had to do when we got into post was basically just look at the assembly and basically edit based off of the assembly. So we did that, and it was just back and forth notes, which took 4 weeks, I think. So it took almost a month to get the film to picture lock. And then after that, Jada had to give it up, and we had to go into to color. So color happened with Sam. So that was just a whole nother person to be having consistent communication with. And it wasn't like anything different, but I just couldn't physically be there to see what Sam's monitor was looking like. Because what I had to do was, it came out nice and everything looked beautiful. But the thing was, like, I was just so worried because I wasn't physically there to see it. All I saw was what I saw here. So that was good. The whole thing between Jada and Sam was perfect. or I would say perfect until we got into sound. Sound was the heaviest of everything because it was the tightest, I guess, let me say not tightest, most intricate portion of the film. We had a lot of dubbing that we had to do due to some casting issues. We had a lot of uh, sound correction because it was outside. So we just had a lot of things to do. And also, my sound team is scattered really around the
Mm-hmm.
world, but it was really scattered around the United States. You got people working in North Carolina, you got my Foley and my sound effects coming out from the Bahamas, from Candace. So I have so much coming in and out
Yeah.
of, it's like an airport, um, but
Yeah.
virtually.
Yeah.
So it's, we
Right.
got so many things coming in and coming out, and then we're also trying to graduate. So I
Yeah.
have things that I have to do. I have an EPK, and I still have to work as a director. You still wear your director's hat even when you're in post production. So just switching hats and making sure everything's going. We're promoting. I'm taking graduation pictures. We're doing a virtual graduation, and the film was still not done. But,
Yeah.
and then we go through a whole like still, with sound took so much. It wasn't even the picture. Picture was locked by May. But it just took so long for the sound to process and making sure we went through, I think, 4 sound um, drafts until they started to tune things up to and mix everything hard so that it could stay. Um, but it was good. I'm very blessed to have the team that I worked with because it was a masterpiece for them. It was something that they all put a little
Mm-hmm.
piece of themselves in, and I think that was what made the film it uh, how captivating it is now. Honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's one of the like interesting things about the COVID times is that now everything is remote. So having to deal with that is like, of course, just like climbing a mountain. It's such a difficult thing. But whenever it works, it just is even more like refreshing. Like, okay, we can still do this even though it's all done over like Zoom or whatever. So I'm
Oh,
glad it was able to
absolutely.
like work out.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. You can definitely, that's one thing that I learned, that you can definitely work and shoot a film in through a pandemic. I've read
Yeah.
the guidelines, and it's just I know we're all gonna have to get used to zoning, um, which is something that is, if you know, it's just something that separates different departments on an actual
Mm-hmm.
film set from one another, socially distanced, which is really cool. And I think it's going to help film sets because if you know, film sets are very disorganized and very cluttered and very rambunctious sometimes. So I think the zoning is going to put it at ease and make people know and delegate people to where they need to be at appropriate
Mm-hmm.
times to help filming go smooth, or much smoother than it should go. So it's just a change. It's just a change that we're going to have to go
Mm-hmm.
through. I haven't shot anything in the pandemic yet. I've had multiple bookings that either have canceled, or currently I just out budget them just due to costs and finances of things. Things cost differently now. So I think I will try to be getting back into production, hopefully towards the end of this year, in the latter part of this
Mm-hmm.
year. We got some things coming, hopefully, but yeah, everything else when it comes to post production, I mean, production itself through a pandemic, you can definitely do it as
Mm-hmm.
long as everyone is just following the guidelines and being safe. It's possible
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. So it's been so interesting to learn about how you started in filmmaking from that high school class to like building Ivy Vision and now what your plans are for the future and this year and everything. So my hope is that there's someone listening to this that wants to start their own company, but maybe is just starting out in film school or something. And they're just too scared to do it, or they just don't know. It's a lot of unknowns how you start a company and all that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
if you could say one thing to that person, what would you tell them?
I know you and Elizabeth had the same exact question to like in your podcast, and it always gets me. This question always gets me. It's like, what would you say to that person? And it's like, I don't know. I didn't have really anyone say it to me because okay, this is another story. I didn't have anyone say it to me because my mother, we were on vacation. Actually, we were looking at colleges in California. And we had gone shopping, and I saw this jacket, and it said, "Make things happen." And it was the cutest jacket. It was so expensive, though. It was like $100 some. And my mom was like, I was like, "I want this jacket." And she's like, "I'm not getting that jacket." So we walk out of the store, and then we go look at different things. And then she's like, she basically tells me like a little white lie, says that she's going to go do something. And she goes and buys the jacket for me. And that is like, ever since that day, because we were in California looking at film schools, and my mom told me and gave me a jacket that said, "Make things happen." I was like, anything is possible. I don't know why they gave me such a boost, but anything is possible to do. So I would basically tell you that make things happen is what I would tell that person, because regardless of your financial standpoint, regardless of where you come from, who your daddy is, who your mom is, you can make things happen on your own. And it's not always going to be on your own. You're going to have a team behind you, but it's you who are the driving force for that team, and you're able to do it. So having that high ambition and having that vision for what you want to conquer, whether it's in film and creating your own company, or whether it's in makeup, or whether it's in sound or in music. It could be any avenue that you want to do. It could be, like I told Elizabeth, I said, you could be a trash picker-upper. And as long as you have a passion to pick up trash, and that's what you live and breathe, baby, you can make it happen. And that's for any person. So that's what I would tell them. I know that sounds very redundant, but it's what got me through college, one, and that's probably what's going to get me through the rest of my career, because, anything's possible. You just got to have the right people, and have patience, the right people, and the right timing.
No, I think that's perfect for people to hear. It's good to you got to think it's possible. You know what I mean? So, because if you don't think it's possible, then the whole dream falls apart. So I think that's perfect.
Yes. It starts with you. And it's like, this as a director and a producer, Wes, that if you as the producer, or you as a director or the writer don't believe in the project, your crew will not believe in the project.
Yeah.
Meaning the project does not have faith, meaning it's going to die. So I know that sounds very harsh, but it's the truth. You, the director, the producer, the writer, is the driving force in the heart of that whole project. So you have to reverberate that energy throughout your entire team, or else they are not going to believe in your project or your dream, your vision, like you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm so glad that you said that, because I think that's the perfect note to end on. Jill, thank you so much for doing this. Like I said at the top of the episode, it's been a long time coming, so I'm so glad we got to finally sit down. Sucks that it has to be virtual. Hopefully one day we can be in the same room again.
I can't wait.
Talk about all this in person.
I know. I can't wait till everything starts to... It's not going to get back to normal, but once we get into a comfortability with what we got going on and everything starts to become more safe, I can't wait to see you guys. And, hopefully we can collaborate more than just the podcast and everything. But
oh yeah, I was just about to say that. I would love to talk about, what we can do, especially this year with because I feel like we both have a lot of big plans this year. So seems we're on the same page on a lot of things. So
yes, I think Shakeem, my marketing director, will be sending you some emails quite
amazing. I'm excited. Those are the kind of emails I like. Is those are the emails that I like.
Yes,
So
got some things coming. So, but
yeah.
I do have some plugs. Can I plug in some things real quick
Yeah,
before we
I
end?
definitely want you to talk about the exposure tour and anything else you want to plug. Please plug it.
Yes, that was my plug. There we
Okay,
go.
perfect.
I'm just kidding. But the exposure tour. So we are taking the film exposure on a 4 city tour starting in Atlanta on January 30th. Super excited actually to be going to our most, I guess, um, favorable cities, I guess you could say. So we're going to Houston. We're starting in Atlanta, going to Houston, then we're going to Miami. I've never really been to Miami, so I'm excited about that. And then we're
Yeah.
coming to close it out in Savannah. So I'm inviting everyone to the entire tour, but if you're listening to this, I would definitely invite you to the Savannah tour. Savannah show is going to be very much fun. Not a lot of details just yet, but
Mhm.
hopefully the whole cast will be there, and we'll have all the producers, and we're going to be doing a lot of talkbacks and things of that nature. So we're going to be doing a special announcement also. So you can buy
Okay.
your tickets on our website, ivyvision.com/tour. Links are also in our social media. You can find them on Wes's page somewhere.
Yeah, any links
And
to stuff that we talk about will be in the description of this episode. So I'll post links to
okay,
everything.
cool.
And I'm just checking. I'm glad that you brought this up because I'm looking at my calendar. So your episode comes out February 12th, and the Houston show is
Ooh,
February 13th. So tomorrow,
yes.
if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, and then February 27th is Miami, and March 6th is Savannah. So if you're listening to this episode and you still haven't got a chance to get tickets to either of those shows, there's still time. So definitely check out the links in the description, and you can find everything.
Yes, yes. So shout out to Houston. I can't wait to go home and hang out with my hometown homies.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be cool.
Sounds cool. That would be cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Wes, for having me. I can't wait to see what you do with this. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And just another note to the audience, we are also doing video episodes of the podcast now. So check out the Tungsten Originals YouTube channel. You can find that in the link, like the description to this episode, and go post a comment what your thoughts were. And you can see some behind the scenes pictures from exposure and other things that we talked about. And also, I've been meaning to get into the habit of mentioning this, but if you rate and review the Tungsten Originals podcast on iTunes, on Apple Podcast, DM Tungsten a screenshot and let me know your address, and I'll send you a free sticker from Tungsten. The ratings on iTunes really help us out a lot. So, if you want a free sticker, do that and let me know you did it. But yeah, thank you so
Awesome.
much for doing this. I love gushing about our respective companies because it's such a big part of like who we are and everything. So it's like, very important to us. So
I
I'm
love
so
that.
glad to have someone else.
Yes. Keep in touch about all your company moves. I love that. I wish we could have like a little like organization for little up and coming film companies, like a little like
Yeah, yeah,
group. That would be
yeah.
cool. But I
Yeah,
love what you're
maybe
doing with
one day.
Tungsten, so I can't wait. Hey,
Well,
we can put
thank you.
something together. We can
Yeah,
make it
we can
happen.
make things happen.
We can make things happen. Well, that was
Well,
great.
Joel,
Very
thank you
great.
again. I'm so excited for this to come out. I think people will get a lot out of this episode. And
Awesome.
yeah, we'll see you next week with the episode with Jada.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me, and you have a great time.
Thank you. You too. See you, everybody.